welcome back to my channel. So today's going to be a bit of a shorter video and more of a how-to because I just got back from a business trip, haven't had much time to do a lot of progress, and I am very tired. So I thought I would share this trick or tip or how-to with you now, and then I will post an update next week, which will be a reveal of my mystery project. So make sure to tune in for that. And for now, let's start on showing you how to make a continuous strip of bias tape. This is where normally you would cut out your bias strips and then sew them all together individually to make it. But in this case, you fold your fabric and cut it in a way so that you can, when you cut it in like a spiral so that it is one continuous piece and you don't have to sew a bunch of pieces together. I should say, please ignore the sound in the background. My 3D printer is running. I'm finally getting around to printing the longest print for Freewind staff that I have and the last piece that I need. So it's almost done, but it probably still has several hours left. So I'm not going to shut it off in case I messed up. Also, please ignore the gaping hole in the back of my wall. I still haven't put those closet doors back. However, I have reorganized the closet, though you can't really see it because of the box of poster board for Tegwheel that's sort of hanging out back there, and then Freewind tossed on my mannequin. So I do want to say one tip for this bias tape is to not use thick fabric. For Freewind, if you've been watching my update videos, you know I used damask, and it was a mistake. It was a mistake. It worked for the skirt, but it was very difficult to get it to ease around the shape of the skirt, around the circular part, because it was so wide. It did about 3-inch width bias tape, and I painted on top of it, which didn't help, but I did get it on the skirt, and I tried it on, and the skirt looks fine. It'll work on the sleeve cuffs because they're just cuffs. It's not bias tape. It's just fabric. However, it's not going to work on the cape. The cape is too tight of a circle. It's more of like an oval, but it's too tight of a curve is what I should say. And I cut the bias tape down to be about 2 inches wide, and the fabric is just way too thick. It makes the cape stick out. So my recommendation is to use a fabric that is thin, has a lot of flimsiness to it, or a lot of give if you're going around tight curves. Otherwise, you're going to struggle with it the way I did. This, however, plays no part on how to actually make the continuous bias tape. So let me show you how to do that. So this is the fabric that I've chosen to use on Freewind's cape. It's kind of the same color as the damask, just shinier. I'm actually probably going to flip it over and use the back so it's matter and matches it a bit more closely. But to start making your continuous bias tape, the first thing you need to do is get a square. So I'm just going to take the edge and fold it over to make a triangle. And then I'm going to cut off or cut along this line here. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off this selvage so that it doesn't get in the way later. And then I'm going to cut this piece in half by going along the diagonal, the folded part, and cutting right down that edge so that now I have 2 triangle pieces. Because I want to use the matte side of this, I'm just going to double check that I have the sides that I want together. So you're going to want right sides together. And that for me would mean the 2 matte sides need to be facing each other. So I'm going to take this top triangle, ensure that right sides are facing each other, so wrong side out. I'm going to place this triangle on top of the other after rotating it around just once. So that's going to give you this interesting pennant shape. And then I'm going to pin it along the top of the two pieces and sew them together. Make sure to press your seam so that it lays flat for the next step. So next I need to mark the width of my bias tape. So I'm going to use these heat erase pens that I got from Amazon. The brand is Madame Sew. There's 4 pens and a refill for each pen in here. They run out of ink really fast, but I love the fact that I could just iron them away. So not a bad purchase, I just wish that the ink lasted longer. Okay, so I need to mark the width of my bias tape. So I know that I want my bias tape to be 2 inches wide when everything is folded. So I need to think about how I want this to fold. So if I want 2 inches on the outside and 2 inches on the inside when it's folded like this, I'm going to need at least 4 inches, and then there needs to be some left over that will roll up underneath because I'm creating a double fold bias tape. So I think what I'm going to do is do 4 inches in the middle and then 1 inch on top and 1 inch on bottom. So that'll be 6-inch wide strips that I need to create this bias tape, with the thought that I can fold in 1 inch on the top and bottom to give me this rolled look that I'm going for. So having a cutting table like this with this grid makes it so much easier, because I'm going to line the top up with one of the lines on the table so that I can ensure that everything is laying straight so I can get some good measurements. So I'm just going to line this up to the top, and then I can actually see through the grid through the fabric. So once this is lined at the top, I'm going to take my quilting ruler and I'm going to count down 6 inches from that line and make a little mark. I don't really need the ruler because I can see it, but I'm going to use the ruler so that you can kind of see what I'm doing through the video. I'm not certain if you can see the grid through the fabric in the same way I can. So 6 inches from the edge, and we're going to go ahead and mark that. And then I'm going to follow the lines on the drafting table that I can see through the fabric to just make sure that I get this line straight across, and then I'm going to trace the line all the way across the fabric. And then I'm going to 6 inches down from this line and draw that across the fabric. And then I'm going to 6 inches from this line to the bottom of the fabric as well. And it just so happens that this is 6 inches, so I don't really need to do much about it. So now I'm going to scoot this over and finish out my lines on this side. So we're going to flip the fabric over so that we have our right sides facing up and the lines we just drew are facing the table. And then we are going to take each corner and we're going to bring it in towards the center. We're going to do this in a way so that we sort of make a square. Now, this is not where we are leaving it. So now that we have it folded in, we can see our lines, which I know is kind of difficult to see here on the video, but I can see my lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the fabric so that these lines line up with the one below it. We don't want them to line up with the ones that they naturally come in contact with when you make the square. Just pull on those corners until you have the lines lining up with the next one below it. I hope that makes sense. It sounds a little weird, but if you kind of follow the visual of this video, it'll work. So we really want to make sure those lines are all lined up, and then we are going to pin along this edge and stitch it together. It's a little awkward stitching this part of the fabric, but if you just pin it and then lay that part flat, you'll have no problem at the machine getting this stitched together. So now that this is stitched together, we have this strange looking tube of fabric. And now the fun part can begin. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut the fabric into one continuous strip. We're going to start at the top line right above that seam that we just stitched. And we're going to follow our line all the way around this tube to cut the fabric into our bias strip. It is important to try to be as straight as possible here, but this fabric is very slippery and I found it very difficult to make a straight cut. But I'm not too terribly concerned about it because it will be folded over later. It'll just make folding this tape evenly a little more difficult. So try your best to cut straight and follow your line, but it's not the end of the world if you have a little snafu here or there. Once you've made your final cut, you have your continuous bias strip. Now the final step into making this into bias tape is to fold it. So the first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to fold along one of these top edges about an inch in. So I'm going to use my table again just to make this easier for me, but you can measure this out or draw a line, but we're going to fold it in an inch on top and bottom and iron that into place. And you want to make sure that you're getting a nice crisp edge on this. I will say, given how slippery this fabric is, I did fight a little with it to get it to fold and stay in place while I ironed it. But my starting point is a little wonky, but oh, lots of steam. And you're just going to work all the way down the edge of the bias tape. You don't have to do one side and then the other. You could do top and then bottom. I like to do all of one side and then flip it and then do all the other side. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to go ahead and also fold in the top so that you can see how this will look in the end. So then after we have the top folded in 1 inch, we're now going to fold this in half. And that will get me my 2-inch wide double fold bias tape. So that's all there was to it. It's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it, and it doesn't take too long. So I hope this video helped you in making your own custom continuous bias tape. If you liked it, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!